All right, let's dive right in, shall we? Today, we are exploring a fascinating world of strategy and power dynamics. You guessed it. The 48 Laws of Power. The Masterpiece by Robert Greene.
This book really pulls back the curtain on how power operates, right? Using all sorts of examples, from historical figures to psychology to even warfare. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it could be a little unsettling, too. Greene doesn't shy away from the, let's say, more ruthless aspects of power, but I think that's what makes it so compelling.
Oh, absolutely. It's a guidebook almost to navigating power dynamics in various areas of life. We see these laws at play everywhere, from the boardroom to personal relationships and beyond.
Right, it's like understanding the often unspoken rules that govern human behavior. So what we're going to do today is give you a crash course in all 48 laws, a rapid-fire deep dive, if you will, so you can recognize these patterns and maybe even use them strategically in your own life. Think of it like a buffet of power strategies.
It's a fantastic idea. I like that, a buffet, yeah. So we can sample a little bit of everything and get a taste for what each law has to offer.
Exactly. Some of these laws might seem a little, well, controversial at first glance. But remember, the goal here is to understand the concepts, not necessarily endorse every single tactic. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Very true. And the more we understand these dynamics, the better equipped we are to navigate them in a way that aligns with our own values and goals.
Okay, so let's jump right in with law number 1. Never outshine the master. Greene starts off strong with this one, with a cautionary tale about Nicolas Fouquet, who tried to win favor with King Louis XIV by throwing this incredibly lavish party, but it backfired spectacularly.
Yeah, Fouquet's intention might have been good, right? Maybe just to impress the king. But the whole display of wealth and extravagance ended up making the king feel threatened, insecure even. And what happened? Fouquet ended up imprisoned.
So it's like, even if we have good intentions, sometimes we can accidentally step on the toes of those in positions of authority.
Exactly. You've got to be super mindful of those power dynamics. It's not about being a yes man or shrinking yourself, just understanding the importance of making those above you feel appreciated and secure in their position.
Right, subtlety is key. Okay, law number 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Now, this one sounds a little harsh on the surface, but Greene makes an interesting case. He uses the example of Michael III of Byzantium, who was betrayed by his trusted friend.
This one's all about understanding that blind trust, especially in professional settings, can be a huge mistake.
So friendships are great, don't get me wrong, but in the game of power, we need to be smart and strategic, right? Competence and the right alliances can sometimes be more important than personal loyalty.
Precisely. And sometimes even a former enemy with their unbiased view of your strengths and weaknesses can be a more reliable partner than a friend who might be blinded by, say, jealousy or affection.
It's a really thought-provoking concept.
Yeah.
Okay, on to law number 3. Conceal your intentions. This one sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, keeping your cards close to your chest.
And Greene uses a perfect example for this one, Otto von Bismarck, the mastermind behind the unification of Germany. He was a master of keeping his opponents guessing.
And he used misdirection, right, to basically manipulate people and achieve his goals. So law 3 is all about strategy and thinking several steps ahead.
Yes, like a game of chess. By concealing your intentions, you gain that element of surprise, making it harder for anyone to predict or block your moves.
It reminds me of that famous quote, all warfare is based on deception. Okay, let's shift gears to law number 4. Always say less than necessary. What's the wisdom behind this one?
This law highlights the power of silence and strategic ambiguity. We can learn a lot from Louis XIV, the so-called Sun King, who was famous for his calculated silence. He made sure every word mattered.
So by saying less, you're almost creating this aura of mystery, right?
Damn.
You're keeping people in suspense and they're hanging on your every word.
Exactly. You maintain control of the narrative and don't give away too much information. It keeps your options open.
So it's about being mindful of how much you reveal, not necessarily being evasive. Okay, on to law number 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Now, this one seems pretty straightforward, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. Think of your reputation as a shield, even a weapon, in the game of power. Greene uses P.T. Barnum, the legendary showman, as a prime example.
Barnum was a master at creating buzz, right? Even if it meant stirring up some controversy. I guess the old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity, applies here.
Well, it certainly did for Barnum, but the point is, A solid reputation opens doors, and it can deflect attacks. It gives you credibility and influence.
It's almost like building a fortress around yourself made of public perception.
Yeah.
And you have to be proactive in managing that, right?
Absolutely. Your reputation precedes you in any interaction. It shapes how people see you and treat you. So guard it fiercely and cultivate it strategically.
All right, moving on to law number 6, court attention at all cost. Now, this might sound a little narcissistic at first glance, but I'm curious to hear Green's perspective on this one.
It's not about being an attention hog in a negative way. It's about recognizing that standing out from the crowd, making yourself memorable, is crucial in the game of power. Green uses the story of Count Victor Lustig, a notorious con man, to illustrate this point.
Lustig was a master of creating a persona, wasn't he? He knew how to draw people in.
Exactly. Mystery and allure, he understood those elements perfectly. You don't need to be flashy or arrogant. Just create an image that sparks people's curiosity and makes them want to be around you.
So law 6 is all about strategic self-presentation, right? Projecting an image that aligns with your goals and draws people in.
Precisely. And remember, perception is often reality, and how you present yourself greatly influences how others perceive you and what opportunities come your way.
All right, on to law number 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. This one might raise a few eyebrows ethically, but there's definitely a strategic element to it.
Absolutely. This is about understanding the power of delegation and leveraging other people's talents. You build a team of capable individuals to help you reach your goals.
So you're like the mastermind, the conductor of the orchestra. You might not play every instrument, but you're leading the charge, making sure it all comes together.
Right. You're setting the direction, inspiring the team, and ultimately taking responsibility for the outcome, whether it's success or failure.
But what about the ethical part? Taking credit for other people's work doesn't seem right.
You have to strike a balance, of course. Green isn't condoning stealing credit or plagiarizing. It's more about being the visionary, the one who sets the direction, inspires the team, and ultimately bears the responsibility for the outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about leadership and recognizing that achieving something truly great often requires a collective effort.
Exactly. True power often lies not in doing everything yourself, but in leading and coordinating the efforts of others to achieve a shared vision.
All right, let's move on to law number 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. This one sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
This is about the power of attraction. Make yourself the irresistible prize, so to speak. Green uses the example of Napoleon's return from exile to illustrate this.
Napoleon didn't have to fight his way back into power. He simply made himself the solution to France's problems. People were almost begging him to take charge.
Exactly. He cultivated his image, nurtured his legend, and waited for the right moment to make his move. It's about understanding the psychology of desire.
So the more you chase something, the more elusive it becomes. But when you make yourself the prize, people come to you. It's like reversing the polarity, right?
Absolutely. Create a sense of scarcity, make yourself valuable and sought after. Be the solution, the answer to a pressing need or problem.
Okay, on to law number 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. This one resonates with me. Actions speak louder than words, right?
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Green uses the story of Michelangelo skillfully handling a patron's criticism. Instead of getting bogged down in arguments, he just created the illusion of making a change, satisfying the patron without actually altering his work.
It's brilliant,
Yeah.
really. He sidestepped a potential conflict and got his point across through his actions.
Exactly. Sometimes the best way to win an argument is to avoid it altogether. Let your accomplishments do the talking. Prove your point through tangible results.
Okay, law number 10, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Now this one, I have to admit, sounds a little harsh, but I'm open to hearing Green's rationale behind it.
It's not about being heartless or abandoning people in need. It's more about protecting yourself from the potentially damaging effects of negativity.
So it's about being mindful of the company you keep, right? Not letting the negativity of others drag you down.
Precisely. Think of it as a form of self-preservation, surrounding yourself with positive, uplifting people who will inspire you to reach your full potential.
It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. The people you associate with have a huge impact on your mindset and your success. Choose your circle wisely.
All right, let's dive into law number 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. This one sounds a little manipulative, but I'm assuming there's a more strategic side to it.
There is. It's about making yourself indispensable, cultivating a unique skill set that makes you so valuable that others have to rely on you.
So it's not about control or manipulation, but about becoming the go-to person, the expert in your field.
Precisely. Hone your craft, build specialized skills, and become known for your excellence in a specific area. This creates a sense of dependence, which translates to power and influence.
Okay, on to law number 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. This one sounds a bit counterintuitive. Can you explain?
Absolutely. This law is about strategic kindness. It might sound strange, but Green actually uses the example of Al Capone, the notorious gangster, to illustrate this point.
Al Capone, really? Known for his generosity.
He was, surprisingly. Capone made a point of being generous, especially towards those in need. He understood that people are more trusting of someone who appears honest and giving. Of course, the key is to be genuine in your actions, even if your motives are strategic.
So it's about using kindness as a way to build trust and influence. It's a delicate balance, for sure.
Exactly. People are more likely to be persuaded by someone they see as genuine and caring.
Okay, let's move on to law number 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. This sounds like a pretty practical life lesson.
It is. Green is all about understanding human motivation. And he makes the point that people are far more likely to help you if they see it benefiting them in some way.
So instead of relying on past favors or appealing to their sympathy, frame your request in a way that highlights the benefits for the other person. Make it a win-win situation.
Exactly. People, even if they don't admit it, are inherently self-interested. By appealing to their self-interest, you make it easier for them to justify helping you.
Makes sense. Okay, on to law number 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. This one sounds a little cloak and dagger, but I'm curious to hear how Green applies this.
It's about the importance of gathering information, being observant, and paying close attention to the social and professional dynamics around you.
So it's not about being paranoid or suspicious of everyone, but just being socially aware, picking up on subtle cues, and reading between the lines.
Precisely. You become like a detective, piecing together the puzzle to understand people's motivations and intentions. The more information you have, the better equipped you are to make strategic decisions.
Okay, on to law number 15. Crush your enemy. Totally. This one sounds a bit intense, but I'm curious to hear Green's reasoning behind it.
This law emphasizes the importance of decisive action when dealing with rivals or threats. He uses the example of a Chinese general who showed mercy to his enemy only to be defeated later because of it.
So it's about recognizing that sometimes, in the world of power, hesitation or half measures can be fatal.
Right. If you're going to strike, make it decisive and eliminate the threat completely. Of course, this law should be applied carefully and ethically, considering the context of the situation.
Of course. It's not about being ruthless for the sake of it, but understanding that in some situations, decisive action is necessary for self-preservation.
Precisely. Power dynamics can be a zero-sum game. Showing weakness can invite further aggression. You have to know when to stand your ground.
Okay, on to law number 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. This one seems a little counterintuitive. Wouldn't being more present increase your influence?
Not always. Green argues that strategic absence can make you more valuable and make people crave your attention.
So it's about playing a little hard to get. The less available you are, the more desirable you become.
Exactly. It's about controlling the dynamics of presence and absence, creating a sense of intrigue that draws people in. Think about it. When something is always available, we tend to take it for granted.
That's true. Scarcity often creates value. Okay, let's move on to law number 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
This is a fun one. It's about keeping your opponents guessing and off balance, always a step ahead.
So it's about being unpredictable, constantly changing your tactics and strategies to keep them on the defensive.
Yes. The more predictable you are, the easier it is for others to anticipate your moves and exploit your weaknesses. But when you're adaptable, you make it almost impossible to strategize against you.
It's like a game of mental chess. Okay, on to law number 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. This seems counterintuitive. Wouldn't a fortress provide safety and security?
You would think so, right? But Green argues that isolating yourself, even for protection, can actually make you more vulnerable.
So it's about recognizing that true strength comes from collaboration, connection, not from hiding from the world.
Right. When we isolate ourselves, we cut ourselves off from valuable information and a network of support. And we create this echo chamber where our fears and insecurities can take over.
It's like that saying, no man is an island. We need each other to thrive and survive.
Exactly. Building strong alliances, nurturing a network of trusted advisors, those are essential for navigating the complexities of power.
Okay, on to law number 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. Seems like common sense, but I'm sure Green has some insightful example.
Oh, he does. He tells a story about a prince who was insulted by a seemingly insignificant ruler. The prince, however, didn't forget the insult, bided his time, and eventually rose to power, taking his revenge. The lesson is, be careful who you offend, even those who seem powerless in the present.
So it's about understanding that power dynamics can shift over time, and someone who seems insignificant today could become a formidable opponent tomorrow. It's about choosing your battles wisely and not making unnecessary enemies.
Exactly. Every interaction has the potential to create either an ally or an enemy. Be discerning in your judgments.
All right, on to law number 20. Do not commit to anyone. This one sounds a little cynical, but again, I'm interested in Green's take on this.
This law is all about maintaining your autonomy, not getting tangled in commitments that could limit your freedom of action. He uses the example of Queen Elizabeth I, who was a master at navigating the political landscape without committing to any particular alliance.
So it's about playing the field, keeping your options open, and staying independent.
Precisely. It's not about being heartless or disloyal, but recognizing that commitments, especially in the world of power, can be restrictive. By remaining uncommitted, you retain flexibility and leverage.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Okay, on to law number 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker seem dumber than your mark. This one sounds like a con artist trick. I'm intrigued.
It does, doesn't it? And it's a risky strategy, but when done right, it can be incredibly effective. The idea is to feign ignorance, make your opponent feel superior, and then strike when they least expect it.
So it's about playing dumb, but secretly plotting your next move.
Right. It's about using their overconfidence against them.
Okay, let's move on to law number 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. This one seems completely counterintuitive. Wouldn't surrendering make you appear weak and vulnerable?
Not necessarily. Sometimes surrender can be a strategic move, a way to regroup, buy time, and then turn the tables on your opponent.
So it's about knowing when to retreat, recognizing that sometimes the best defense is a strategic withdrawal.
Yes. It's about using surrender as a tactic to disarm your opponent, lull them into a false sense of security, and then seize the opportunity to strike back.
Okay, on to law number 23. Concentrate your forces. Sounds like a military strategy, but I'm guessing this has wider applications.
It does. This law is about the importance of focus, directing your energy toward a specific goal. Green uses the example of the Rothschild banking family, who became incredibly successful by concentrating their efforts on specific industries.
So it's about understanding that spreading yourself too thin can be counterproductive. You need to focus your energy to maximize your impact.
Exactly. Identify your strengths, hone your skills, and become a dominant force in your chosen field.
All right, on to law number 24. Play the perfect courtier. Now, this one sounds like it's all about social etiquette and navigating those complex social hierarchies.
It is, in a way. The ideal courtier, according to Green, is someone who can navigate the intricacies of social interactions with grace, skill, and a good dose of charm.
So it's about reading people, being diplomatic, and understanding the unspoken rules of social dynamics.
Precisely. You need to be able to adapt your behavior to different situations and people, and always be aware of the subtle cues and power dynamics at play.
Okay, on to law number 25. Recreate yourself. This sounds like it's about self-invention, crafting a persona that projects the image you want to portray to the world.
Yes. It's about understanding that we aren't fixed, that we can evolve and shape our own identities.
So it's about recognizing that we have the power to change and reinvent ourselves, to cultivate new skills, and create an image that aligns with our goals and aspirations.
Exactly. Our identities aren't set in stone. We can constantly learn, grow, and adapt to become the best versions of ourselves.
Okay, let's move on to law number 26. Keep your hands clean. This one sounds a little, well, morally ambiguous, like it's about avoiding responsibility for your actions.
It's not about being unethical or shirking your responsibilities. It's more about understanding the concept of plausible deniability and protecting yourself from potential fallout.
So it's about being strategic and making sure that if something goes wrong, you're not the one holding the bag.
Exactly. Think about using intermediaries, delegating tasks, and creating a buffer between yourself and potentially messy situations. Think about a CEO, right? Sometimes they need to delegate tasks. It allows them to focus on the big picture.
Makes sense. Okay, on to law number 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. This one definitely piques my curiosity.
This law is about tapping into that deep human desire for meaning, purpose, and belonging. It's fascinating how easily this need to believe can be channeled to create a loyal following.
So it's about creating a narrative, telling a story that resonates with people's hopes and dreams.
Exactly. You need to give them something to believe in, something that
What?
fulfills their deepest desires and aspirations. Think of it as the power of storytelling, but on a much larger scale. Think of any successful movement or brand, right? They all have a compelling story that people connect with on an emotional level.
Okay, on to law number 28. Enter action with boldness. This sounds like a call to action, a reminder to be decisive and courageous in our endeavors.
It is. Green stresses that boldness, that decisive action, inspires trust and admiration, while hesitation and timidity create doubt and suspicion.
So it's about taking charge, right? Making the bold move and setting things in motion.
Yes. Action often precedes belief. When you act boldly, you create momentum and inspire others to follow your lead. Think of any great leader. They didn't achieve greatness by sitting on the sidelines. They took risks. They made bold moves.
Okay, let's move on to law number 29. Plan all the way to the end. Now, this one seems pretty obvious, but I'm sure Green has some insights beyond just making a to-do list.
It's not just about planning. It's about planning meticulously and anticipating potential obstacles. Having a plan B, and maybe even a plan C.
So it's about thinking several steps ahead and having contingency plans in place in case things don't go exactly as expected.
Precisely. Green uses the example of Christopher Columbus. Think about the planning and preparation that went into those voyages, securing funding, supplies, a royal charter. It was a massive undertaking.
It's a good reminder that luck and timing certainly play a role in success, but careful planning can significantly increase your chances of achieving your goals.
Absolutely. Preparation is key in almost any endeavor.
Okay, on to law number 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. This one almost sounds like it's about style over substance, but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
Definitely. This is about the art of sprezzatura, making even the most difficult tasks look easy.
So it's not just about being good at what you do, but also making it look easy, almost like you were born with the skill.
Exactly. Think of a talented musician or athlete. They make it look so effortless, right? But behind that apparent ease is years of dedicated practice and discipline. And that's the illusion you want to create, that sense of effortless mastery.
Okay, on to law number 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. Now, this one sounds like it's straight out of a poker game, but I'm sure it has broader applications.
It absolutely does. This is about framing choices and influencing decisions. Green tells this fantastic story about Count Victor Lustig, the guy who conned people into buying the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal.
How is that even possible?
It's a wild story. But the key is that he controlled the options presented to his victim, making it seem like the choice was inevitable.
So it's about setting the stage, creating a scenario where all the choices lead to the outcome you desire.
Exactly. People are often influenced by how choices are presented. By controlling the options, you can subtly nudge them in the direction you want them to go.
All right, let's move on to law number 32. Play to people's fantasies. This one sounds like a marketing strategy, but I'm sure Green has a deeper perspective.
He does. This law is all about understanding the power of desire and how it drives human behavior. He uses the legend of El Dorado, a mythical city of gold, to illustrate this.
El Dorado, the lost city of gold. It's a tale that's captivated explorers for centuries.
Exactly. People were willing to risk their lives chasing after this fantasy. It shows how deeply desire can motivate us. And if you can tap into those desires, you can influence people's actions.
It's about recognizing that people are driven by their hopes, their dreams, even their fears, and understanding how to use that knowledge ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. And it goes hand in hand with the power of storytelling. A compelling narrative that resonates with people's deepest desires can be incredibly persuasive.
Okay, on to law number 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Now, this one sounds a little ominous, like it's about exploiting people's weaknesses.
It can be used that way, which is why it's crucial to approach this law with caution.
So it's about understanding human psychology, recognizing that everyone has their vulnerabilities, their insecurities, even their secret desires.
Exactly. And the point is to use that knowledge ethically and responsibly.
It's about being observant and understanding the subtle cues that reveal a person's weaknesses, but using that information to help them, not exploit them.
Precisely. It's a powerful law, but it needs to be wielded with great care.
Okay, on to law number 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. Now, this one sounds a bit like a self-help mantra, but I'm guessing green has a more strategic angle.
He does. This law is about the power of self-belief and the importance of projecting an aura of authority and confidence.
So it's about acting the part, even if you don't necessarily feel like a king on the inside.
Right. People are drawn to confidence. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you act like a king, people will treat you like one.
It's about understanding that our outward behavior can shape how others perceive us, and ultimately how they treat us.
Exactly. It's about projecting an image that commands respect and deference.
Okay, on to law number 35. Master the art of timing. This one seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'm sure Green has some insightful examples.
Oh, he does. He uses the story of an art dealer who made a fortune by understanding the rhythms of the art market. He knew when to buy, when to sell, and most importantly, when to wait patiently for the right opportunity.
So it's about being observant and patient, recognizing that rushing into action can be disastrous, but waiting for the opportune moment can lead to great success.
Precisely. The world operates in cycles, and if you can understand and align yourself with those rhythms, you can harness the power of timing to your advantage. Think of it like a surfer, right? You don't just paddle out there and expect to catch the biggest wave. You need to watch the sets, study the currents, and wait for the perfect moment to strike.
Exactly. It's like knowing when to plant your seeds and when to harvest your crops. Timing is everything. Okay, on to law number 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Now, this one sounds a little passive-aggressive, but I'm curious to hear how it plays out.
Well, it's really about recognizing that some things are simply beyond our control and dwelling on them, letting them consume us, that only gives them more power.
So it's about choosing to focus on what you can control, what you can change, and just letting go of the rest.
Right. Green uses the example of this Italian writer who was publicly humiliated when his lies about his noble lineage were exposed. Instead of fighting back or getting defensive, he just shrugged it off, acted like it didn't bother him at all.
And I bet that drove his critics crazy, right? The best revenge is a life well lived, as they say.
Exactly. By not giving your enemies the satisfaction of seeing you crumble, you retain your power. You take away their ammunition.
Okay, on to law number 37. Create compelling spectacles. This one sounds a bit like, well, putting on a good show. Smoke and mirrors, perhaps.
There's an element of that to it, for sure. But it's really about understanding that visuals are powerful. Green uses the example of this 18th century doctor who used elaborate theatrical presentations to enhance his perceived healing powers.
So it's about understanding the power of presentation, creating an experience that engages the senses and makes a lasting impression.
Absolutely. People are often more swayed by what they see and feel than by what they logically understand. It's about creating a spectacle, an experience that captures their attention and imagination.
All right, law number 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. Now, this one sounds a little bit contradictory. How can you think one way and act completely differently?
Well, it's about recognizing that sometimes outward conformity is necessary, even if your inward beliefs are different. Think about it. Outright rebellion can be dangerous.
So it's about knowing when to play the game, right? To blend in and conform to social norms, even if you disagree with them.
Exactly. It's about picking your battles. Green uses the example of this German playwright who was brought before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Outwardly, he conformed to their expectations, while inwardly, he held on to his communist beliefs.
So it's about being strategic in your self-presentation, understanding that sometimes it's wiser to conform to the prevailing norms, at least outwardly, while working towards your own goals behind the scenes.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to fly under the radar to achieve your objectives. It's a matter of survival.
Okay, law number 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. Now this one sounds a little, well, mischievous, like creating chaos just for your own benefit.
There's a bit of that to it, yes. It's recognizing that confusion and disruption can create opportunities. Green uses the example of this 19th century financier who intentionally caused panic in the stock market to manipulate prices.
So it's about being a disruptor, shaking things up, and using the resulting chaos to your advantage.
Right. In moments of uncertainty and instability, people tend to make irrational decisions. And that's where the opportunity lies. If you can remain calm and composed, you can often capitalize on the situation.
It's a bit like that saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay, on to law number 40. Despise the free lunch. Now this sounds like a lesson in financial responsibility, but I'm betting Green has a more symbolic meaning in mind.
Oh, he does. It's about recognizing that nothing in life is truly free. Every gift, every favor comes with some kind of obligation, whether it's explicit or implied. It's a reminder to be wary.
So it's about maintaining your independence, not becoming indebted to anyone. It's like that saying, beware of Greeks bearing gifts.
Exactly. It's about preserving your autonomy and recognizing that accepting gifts or favors can sometimes compromise your position. You don't want to owe anyone anything, especially in the game of power.
Okay, law number 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. This sounds like a cautionary tale for anyone trying to follow in the footsteps of a legend.
It is. Green makes a really good point here. Living up to the legacy of someone truly great is incredibly challenging. He uses the example of Louis XV, who inherited the throne from his famous great-grandfather, Louis XIV.
So it's about recognizing that sometimes it's better to create your own path than to try to replicate the success of others.
Right. Constantly being compared to someone else, especially a giant in their field, can be paralyzing. It's important to find your own unique style, your own voice, and blaze your own trail.
Okay, on to law number 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. This one sounds a little ruthless, but again, I'm interested to hear Green's perspective.
It's about strategic targeting. Green uses the French Revolution and the fall of Marie Antoinette to illustrate this point.
So it's about recognizing that sometimes taking down the leader, the head of the organization, is more effective than attacking the followers.
Exactly. It's about creating a power vacuum that throws everything into chaos. The leader goes down and the entire structure crumbles.
Okay, on to law number 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. This one sounds a little more, well, touchy-feely than some of the others.
It is, but it's not about being sentimental or weak. It's recognizing that true power comes from persuasion, not coercion.
So it's about being a leader who inspires genuine loyalty and devotion, not through fear or intimidation, but through respect and admiration.
Precisely. Green tells the story of this brilliant Chinese strategist who consistently won over his enemies with kindness and respect.
So it's a reminder that genuine leadership is about inspiring people to follow you willingly, not forcing them into submission.
Exactly. It's about earning their trust and respect.
Okay, law number 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. This one sounds a bit psychological. Can you elaborate?
This is one of my favorites. It's about using a psychological technique called mirroring. Basically, you reflect your opponent's behavior back at them, which can have a really disarming effect.
So you're basically showing them a mirror image of themselves, which can be both confusing and infuriating.
Exactly. Green uses the example of Napoleon, who was famous for his temper. During a heated confrontation with his foreign minister, the minister remained perfectly calm and collected, mirroring Napoleon's anger right back at him.
And that just made Napoleon even angrier, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a subtle but powerful technique for gaining a psychological edge. You're essentially using their own emotions against them.
Okay, on to law number 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. This one sounds like a lesson in political strategy.
It's a great lesson for any kind of leader, really. It's about recognizing that people are often resistant to change, even if it's for the better. Green uses the example of Mao Zedong, who, despite leading a communist revolution, knew how to introduce changes gradually.
So it's about recognizing that you can't force change too quickly. People need time to adjust.
Right. It's about pacing yourself, introducing new ideas gradually, and making sure you don't overwhelm people with too much change all at once. It's about making change feel less threatening.
Okay, on to law number 46. Never appear too perfect. Now this one seems a little counterintuitive. Wouldn't it be better to always appear flawless and competent?
Not necessarily. Green points out that appearing too perfect can actually work against you.
How so?
Well, it can make you seem unapproachable, intimidating, and it can even breed resentment. People might see you as arrogant or even suspect that you're hiding something.
So it's about recognizing that a little vulnerability, a touch of imperfection, can actually make you more relatable and likable.
Exactly. It makes you seem more human, more authentic. Green uses the example of Michelangelo.
Michelangelo, the artist. What do you mean?
Well, even Michelangelo, despite his immense talent, was known to deliberately introduce tiny flaws into his work.
Why would he do that?
To disarm his critics, to make them think, oh, even Michelangelo makes mistakes, he's not so perfect after all.
That's brilliant. So it's about understanding that perfection can be isolating, while a little bit of imperfection can create a sense of connection.
Precisely. It makes you seem more human, more relatable.
Okay, on to law number 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. This sounds like a lesson in self-control and knowing your limits.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that there's a time to press forward and a time to consolidate your gains. Green uses the example of Cyrus the Great, a brilliant military leader who ultimately overextended his forces and suffered a crushing defeat.
So it's about recognizing that you can't win them all, that sometimes the smartest move is to step back, regroup, and live to fight another day.
Exactly. It's about knowing when to quit while you're ahead.
Okay, and finally, we arrive at law number 48, assume formlessness. This one sounds a little abstract. Can you break it down for us?
It's about being adaptable, flexible, like water.
Be like water. I like that.
It's a great analogy, isn't it? Green uses the example of Japan's ability to adapt to foreign influences. Throughout its history, Japan has absorbed elements of other cultures while still retaining its own unique identity.
So it's about being open to new ideas, new approaches, new ways of doing things, but without losing sight of your core principles.
Exactly. The world is in constant flux. Rigidity, inflexibility, those lead to stagnation. But if you're adaptable, if you can adjust to changing circumstances, you'll always find a way to thrive.
It's pretty amazing how these laws, even though they're drawn from all these different historical figures and situations, still seem so relevant today.
It is, right? It really shows how human nature and the dynamics of power, they're kind of timeless. The patterns just keep repeating themselves, whether it's ancient Rome or a modern-day tech company.
It's like Green has given us this secret code to decipher how the world really works. But now that we've gone through all 48 laws, the big question is, what do we do with this knowledge? I mean, we don't want to turn into some kind of Machiavellian schemers.
Of course not. It's not about becoming a master manipulator or taking advantage of others. It's about awareness.
Awareness of how power dynamics work so we can protect ourselves.
Exactly. Understanding the forces at play so we can navigate these situations in a way that, aligns with our values.
So it's like a self-defense course for the mind.
I like that. It gives us the tools to see manipulation coming, deflect it, assert ourselves more effectively, and make strategic decisions.
Like in the workplace, for example.
Right. Understanding a law like never outshine the master can be so helpful in navigating those relationships with your superiors. It's not about being a pushover, just about making sure those in charge feel secure and respected.
And a law like conceal your intentions, that reminds us it's okay to keep our cards close to our chest sometimes, to not reveal everything right away.
Absolutely. And do not commit to anyone. That encourages us to think for ourselves, maintain our independence, and not get trapped in situations that limit our options.
So Green has given us this mental toolbox we can use to navigate all sorts of challenges and opportunities in life.
Exactly. But remember, knowledge is power, but it has to be used wisely and ethically.
Right, like with that thumbscrew law.
Yeah, knowing someone's weakness doesn't mean you have to exploit it.
It's about understanding people, but using that knowledge to help them, not hurt them.
Precisely. The choice is ours how we use these insights, for good or for ill.
So it's a call to be mindful, to be intentional, to use this knowledge to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to wield power, and how we choose to do that reflects who we are at our core.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the 48 laws of power. It's been a fascinating exploration of human behavior and the age-old pursuit of power.
It really has. And remember, the true power comes from mastering yourself, not from manipulating others.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this intellectual journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay strategic, and keep those minds sharp.